Gonna have a little conversation about some events you've been going to recently, maybe some events I'm headed to, but just want to kind of break down what the event space is looking like for creators and industry folks right now who are trying to find like really valuable events. I think we've seen a lot of consolidation of events. We've seen a lot of new events coming in, seen a lot of new events going out. And I'm interested to hear your experiences at Afros and Audios because I didn't go this year.
hmm
And I'm interested in hearing your experience at Black Week. I've been following Walter, who I think is one of like the co-creators of that for a while. So interested to hear what that's about. But I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Angela Hollowell. I write two newsletters. One of them is called Please Hustle Responsibly, which you can find here on Substack. It's for creators and entrepreneurs who want to learn, connect, and grow. And I'm joined by Kenny of Beyond Normal Media. And to his own admission, writes a newsletter here on Substack, but I'll let him introduce all the other incredible things that he does as well.
Appreciate it, Angela. I'm excited to be on the other side uh, on this Substack stream. I'm used to watching you. But as Angela mentioned, I do have a newsletter, Beyond Normal newsletter. I probably need to come up with a new name. Everything I name is Beyond Normal just to keep the branding consistent. I always think of like when somebody searches on Google, when they search my name, I just wanted to pop up as many different ways. And so that's why I named it that way. But yeah, I also podcast. We just wrapped up season 7 of the Beyond Normal podcast. Amazing season. We had some of our very like some incredible firsts this season. We had our first live with the audience episode where we interviewed Donovan Everett here, local to Charlotte. Charlotte, North Carolina is my home market. But just really excited to be in the podcast space. There's so much opportunity right now. Figuring out like others how to make money from this passion. And so that's why I connect with individuals such as Angela and just other people that have been doing it way longer than I have. Podcasting is definitely not in its infancy anymore. And so I'm excited to join you today to talk a little bit about the event space, conferences. I will have a caveat for the listeners. Before this conference season, I've been inside for about 5 to 6 years. The pandemic happened, and then my wife had our beautiful toddler. So I haven't been outside as much as I would like to. But so that's why I'm really excited to finally be able to attend conferences. And then I'm looking forward to attending more in 2026. As you mentioned, Angela, a lot of things are changing.
I'm I started going to stuff in 2023, maybe. Like that's when I started going to events. Um, I think. Lord have mercy. Yes, 2023. That's when I started going. And that was like the fall of 2023. So that was when I was like still like, oh, there's events that podcasters go to. You know
hmm
what I'm saying? I didn't really like know for real. But now I would say I did a lot of events this year. So I kind of like worked my way up to this year, which was a lot of events. And I think next year I'm actually gonna like scale back even more, like to like
hmm
23 levels. I think it's just because like I've been to so many, I kind of know what I would want out of an event now. So yeah. But anyways, going to Afros and Audio. Afros and Audio I didn't go to this year. I had an obligation for a nonprofit that I'm on the board with, so that conflicted with the weekend timing. Talk to me about your experience at Afros and Audio. I've heard it was different than what I experienced last year.
Yeah, so this was my first year attending, right? And so I did hear some grumblings that this was going to be the last one. So I wanted to make sure I at least attended one. And this was the one. I had never been to Baltimore, so as a city, the whole
Okay.
experience, it was amazing. The food, we got to experience, just some of like the clubs, the bars. So that from that perspective, it was great. I will say for me, I appreciated the conference because I wouldn't say it was deliberate that they had like separate tracks, but there was like a track or there were like a couple conversations for those that were like, I guess like more like in the voice actor space. And then there were some folks that were there talking about gear and equipment. So I just appreciated the mix up versus I feel like the past events that I've seen, that I've attended mostly virtually for podcasting, it more so focuses on the podcast hosts. And so I appreciated this one because it gave a really good representation of like the whole ecosystem. Like there's people behind the camera, there's people who care about the mic setup, the lighting, all those different things. And so for me, it was a well-rounded experience. I definitely left with some nuggets that I put in my newsletter, for sure. And the connections that I made, were really valuable to me. And those conversations have definitely already kept going, even though we're only, what, 2 weeks out of the conference, a week and a half. And so that's what I appreciate the most. Because again, I've been podcast recording, but most of it's been virtual. And so I've been connecting with folks like Angela virtually. But it's just good. Like nothing beats like breaking bread with people, having a meal, having a beer, talking about your passions together in person.
Yeah, I think that area of Baltimore, like the Inner Harbor, is like great. It's walkable. You're right on the water. It's so pretty.
Mhm.
Um, Even just like the walk from the hotel to the venue is so cool. Like I really like that in the morning. It's a great way to like get the day started. And then it's like the fall season, so it's like football is kind of starting, but like the energy of the city is kind of waking up a bit. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So that to me feels good. Like I feel like you can kind of like tell when a city is kind of like sleepy or if it's kind of like okay, like it's feeling good outside. Like you know what I'm saying? I want to be outside and explore a little bit. Um, so yeah, so as a podcaster, like what were you hoping to get from the conference, and do you feel like you got that from it?
For me, the big thing was figuring out how others are monetizing their craft. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's not necessarily saying I want to like copy it, but like, hey, let me listen to how other people are thinking about, going about, connecting with brands and doing things like that to, turn their passion into something they can truly live off of. And I feel like I got that. Some of the I guess the bigger panels, like they elaborated on how they got how they went about getting maybe their first brand deal, how they went about getting some of those opportunities. And so for me, it just let me know like it can be done. And I've been
Yeah.
focusing so much on my Charlotte market, my local area here in North Carolina, as you know. It's hard to like really know it's hard to get outside of your bubble at times. And so for me, it was just getting out, bursting my bubble and seeing what others are working on, what opportunities, are out there. I actually met some founders who were from, I guess there was a vendor or two who's actually from North Carolina, and they're more in your neck of the woods. So it's cool to see, North Carolina represented, from that perspective too, from a vendor perspective too.
Yeah. I really want to have an event in North Carolina. Because if you think about it, like a lot of the bigger podcaster events are like Richmond, DC, Baltimore,
Mm.
or further down in Atlanta. Like there's not like Empowered Podcasting Conference in Charlotte is great, but I feel like we're still not really like it's not exclusively for North Carolina folks.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I also know that we're missing a lot of like big podcasters in North Carolina by not saying
Mhm.
hey, this is for you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like first and foremost, like I feel like Atlanta does a good job of being like, this is for Atlanta
Yeah.
pod, you know, versus like empowered. It's like it's for everybody who just wants to come to Charlotte and
Yeah,
like be a
exactly,
part of this.
exactly.
Versus like I feel like we need something that's like this is for us first, and everybody else who's like within driving distance or wants to explore, come on through. But like this is for us first. Like let's try to get North Carolina people in the door. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that would be dope. I think Charlotte has enough, or Charlotte or even Raleigh, right? But those two
Yeah.
cities, like I feel like we have enough to where if somebody comes here, they get, like you said, they get the North Carolina experience. They can have fun, but then there can also be some like tactical things we discuss as a
Yeah.
collective, as a group.
Yeah. There are some big podcasters and big podcasts like in North Carolina, you know. So I don't know. That's just my little dream there. I want to talk to you about Black Week. I think because it's like Black Week sounds very generic, but the
Mhm,
reality is it's a tech conference essentially for Black people, mostly Black people in tech space, but like Black people in media and like all this
mhm,
type of stuff. I have not been. It's like one. I feel like it's like Culture Con. It's like one of those things like you know about and
mhm.
you see it when it's happening because it's like a very aesthetically pleasing looking conference.
Yeah,
But it's like I know that it exists, but then I never like bother to get on whatever email list I'm supposed to be on so that I can find out about tickets. So I never hear anything about tickets. I just like magically see that people are going when it's happening. So talk to me a little bit about Black Week. Like, how did you prep for it? I know like you have a big interest in tech and Black tech founders. So how did you prep for that? I feel like you probably were a little more intentional with that one as
yeah.
well. And do you feel like you were able to get, what you wanted out of Black Week?
Yeah, so, I appreciate you framing it that way. Black Week was definitely more intentional. I'll be transparent, it was in New York. New York is expensive as crap.
Mm.
And so I was worried about, okay, like the logistics of it. I actually wasn't even able to, due to family obligations, attend the entire event. So I think I was there for like maybe 2.5 days, but the total event was like maybe 4 days, maybe a little bit longer.
Oh, wow.
And it coincided. Black Week is a culmination of essentially there are only a handful of ad executives that are Black in that ad space, right? And the ad space is like a culmination, like you mentioned. It's ad folks, it's tech folks, it's like a really interesting mix. And so they got together and was like last year, hey, let's put this space together. And this year they made it bigger and better. But it was an incredible experience. It coincided with Ad Week. And so for
Yeah.
those that are like in that space, Ad Week was going on and you mentioned Culture Con. That
Yeah.
was like the week before. So I feel like that Culture Con felt like it was the launch of Ad Week at maybe at the beginning of it. So there's all this stuff going on in the city. New York already has like a bunch of different cultures. Like it's like a nice gumbo pot of interesting things going on. And so it was really cool to be there. I am from the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And so for me, it was like coming home. I had, I think one of the things that helped me get the most from the conference was I actually connected with one of my podcast buddies or two of them, Jared, Thomas and Chad. They have a podcast called More Than a Title. And so I focus on connecting with them and them kind of letting me know, like, hey, here's the New York way of doing things because I've been away from there for so long. But once I got in there, it was an amazing experience. Um, they I feel like they went for like the wow factor. So they had panels with like Don Lemon and like folks from iHeartMedia. So it's definitely like an industry focused event. But I think for like independent creators, creatives, a lot of times these big brands, they're looking for, I wouldn't say collaboration partners versus like a supply chain of dope creatives that
Yeah.
they can tap into, honestly, but like they're big brands. And so this just gives you that space to maybe rub elbows with some of these ad executives for some of these agencies. A lot of times for me, the interesting part, these agencies, like, all the big brands that we all shop at, these agencies are who those big brands go to,
Right.
commercials and all the other stuff, amazing stuff that we see visually. And so now why not connect with those creatives to see how we can tap in and leverage, in this case, our podcast experience. But dope experience. I got to meet some folks, Wood Harris, for those that are paid in full movie fans. Like they had celebrities there. They had like a who's who, like stuff like that. But just connecting with like dope creatives that are working at some of these agencies, like that was the big takeaway for me.
Yeah. I feel like for New York, it's easy to get bigger names in. And then like
Exactly.
September, October is like really big for New York because you have Climate Week, which is always big, Ad Week, like you said, then Culture Con, and then next year, one of the podcast movement events is going to be in New York in September.
Mhm.
So I think they're also trying to capitalize on like, well,
Yeah.
there's already like this energy in the city of like a bunch of people flying in anyway.
Yeah.
Why don't we just make ourselves available as like one of the events that people can attend and pay for, um, and maybe extend their trip, because that's kind of how I'm looking at it, really.
Yeah, 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 they wanna extend it. There I wanna
Yeah.
point one thing out too around the price or the paying for it, like you mentioned. This was not a cheap conference.
Okay.
I just wanna preference it with that. I think, like, the base ticket was probably, like, maybe, like, 4 or 500,
Okay.
which is a lot for me.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's a
But I
lot.
think
That's a lot.
one of the cool things that they did was they put a specific emphasis on, the unemployment of Black females. And so there was a stat that they kept promoting, like 300,000 Black females this year alone have been impacted by just the shifts. We don't have to get into political stuff, right? So what they did was they went to their brand partners and they asked their brand partners to buy tickets in batches of say 5, 10, 15, 20, and then
Yeah.
they gave those tickets away, right, to mostly Black females. And so I appreciate that, right? I think that's intentional. And that's really like people who have the cachet or the power to do stuff, the influence, like that's them like really doing it, like walking the walk and as you talk it. So I appreciated them doing that. And then just the price of some of this stuff, conferences in general, I definitely would like to know a little bit more about your strategy, Angela, around um navigating the pricing for some of this stuff because I had a budget for this year. And in 2 months, I spent that entire budget. So I can only imagine if I built that out um, for a whole year, like what my budget would be. Like I may have to go to the bank and ask for a loan. I feel like if I want to go to all the conferences I went to, but I just wanted to shout out Black Week for specifically doing that and putting a focus on Black women and allowing them to attend this expensive session for free, complimentary.
Yeah. Yeah. And Michelle is agreeing with you, so we appreciate that. So yeah, in terms of budgeting for events, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Honestly, like just my hotel for like a few nights for Afros and Audio, I think it was like in 2023, it was like way more than the cost of the ticket.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes the hotel can be like, you know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, I
Mhm.
drove. Like, gas wasn't that expensive, but it's like, okay, you got to add up the time to drive, the gas to drive, the hotel, plus a ticket if you're paying for a ticket. So like it can get priced
Food.
very quickly. I'm pretty sure I know I spent at least $1,000 on that one.
Mhm.
But I was a speaker and like I was in a room of like 30, 40 people. So like it worked out. Like I got something from it.
Mhm.
Do I think that this is before I had a newsletter. Let me also preface it with that. So I didn't even like really get emails for it. Like I got a few emails, but I
Mhm.
didn't have a newsletter for real. So um was it worth it then? I think so. One, because I was trying to like learn from other podcasters. Number one, I wanted to kind of get a pulse on like what people who look like me were doing. Number two. And number three, I want to be able to like speak and like get some greater name recognition around myself as a podcaster. I think I accomplished those things. I think in the next year, 2024, and this year, it's like, okay, I can't just get a few photos for social media. I need a little bit more than that to make it worth it. So after that, it's like, okay, like one, is this a place I want to go? And is like, if I wasn't going for the conference, are there other things that I would want to do that I feel like would be worth my time to go?
Mhm.
So, I'm trying to find an example. Chicago, for example, I did a podcast movement evolutions. I spoke. Um, I did a custom pamphlet, like paper pamphlet for that one. I think I printed out like 50 and I ran out. And then like, cause I had roughly somewhere between 60 and 80 people that were like attending my session. So I like got all those people. I got emails. And then I got to meet a bunch of other podcasters that I still talk to today. So for me, it was like, can I find other people to collaborate with? Um, that's the main thing. I wanted to learn about doing events for my podcast. I
Mhm.
got to do that. Um, I, like I said, wanted to network. I got to go to some like business kind of like, what do you call those things? Happy hour type deals, like
Got it.
meetups. the
Okay.
women's sports podcaster meetup. I really wanted to go to that. I just started my new show in January. And then there was one for like Black and brown women in podcasting. Riverside had one. There are just a lot of different like meetups. So I got to meet a lot of different people. Some people I still talk to this day. So I got like what I wanted out of that in terms of learning. And then I got to see like what brands are spending money on podcasting right now and like what brands are being ignored by podcasting right now. So interestingly, there was a booth by Sony and they brought like in a local like camera rental shop,
Mm-hmm.
like including me, maybe 5 people stopped by that booth the entire time. Like people are just like they had like a whole stage sponsored by YouTube on video podcasting, but like almost nobody knew anything about cameras and like audio equipment enough to like walk up to this booth and talk to them. Like that's a huge disparity. And even all the stuff on the video podcasting stage, I was like, oh, there's a huge gap that I can fill. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's also like, what gaps can I fill? I feel like I got everything I wanted. Also, Chicago, it's beautiful. I had a great time. So I try to think about it like that. Like, what connections can I make? What gaps can I look for that are there? How many people can I expect to meet and reasonably convert to newsletter subscribers? That was a big deal for me. And then what other creators can I collaborate with? I already collaborate with Michelle, who's in the comments, obviously, but YouTube has now added a collaboration feature. Who else can
Yeah.
I collaborate with on YouTube? Who else can I collaborate with on Substack Live? Like, what are the opportunities that are available? Um, and for me, the cost of the plane ticket was less than 300, and I stayed with a friend, so I didn't have to pay for a hotel.
That's
So
not
I
bad.
was like, yeah. So outside of Uber and my plane ticket and food, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, and another girl that I met, she's a producer who just moved to Atlanta, so I'm excited to work with her on some stuff. So for me, it was worth it. I think for Resonate, for example, it's just the price of gas. It's only 2.5 hours from Durham. And then I've gotten a decent price like hotel, for that. So it's like less than $500. And the first time I went to a session that helps me understand how to get a $5,000 sponsorship for my show. So
Yeah.
it's like there's stuff like that. I do think like there's some you go to for learning, like Resonate. I always feel like I learned something at Resonate. And then there's some that you go to for like networking, reach, thought leadership. And that's kind of how I look at podcast movement. Like I did learn something this time, but I wouldn't say that was my main purpose. Like that was like an extra. That was like for me. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of just the sheer size of it, that was one of the attractions to it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, you said something in there. There was a session. It was a lunch and learn, I think, with Libsyn, and I've noticed this at quite a few of the podcast like conferences. There's like a usually, and you alluded to this just now with your example, but there's usually a big focus on like being a podcaster, and then you're like, hey, here's your track to get, your 10,000 or your 20,000 streams, right? Whatever the number is.
Yeah.
But I don't know if should be a set track for this, but there should be like a focus. I gave feedback to the Libsyn folks, like there really should be like a B2B. Like, hey, I don't necessarily need like I may be okay with 100 businesses connecting with my podcast, and like that's a pretty good amount of that's a lot of opportunity. I'm not
Hmm.
sure if there's enough of that at the conferences that I've attended. Like, hey, like here's how you cultivate these relationships with these businesses. Here's how you, like get one person at the business to watch your stuff, and then it kind of expands from there, and you get multiple people, and then you have a conversation. Like, with the example you just gave though, with that one session, $5,000, for example. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like there just needs to be more of that. It doesn't necessarily have to be clickbaity in terms of the title, right? Where people go
Yeah.
to it. But there should be much more of a focus, I think, on like business relationships and building those versus, going viral.
What I will say is like the person, so they were a trans person. That's why I keep saying they. I'm not trying to be mysterious. Like that's just their pronouns. But theirs wasn't necessarily on how to get more sponsorships. It was about how to build a community for your podcast. They had a Patreon.
Mm,
And the way that they structured their presentation, I was like, hold on. Like, the language he's using is very interesting. Like, how can I adopt that to what I'm doing with the newsletter I want to create?
Mhm.
And so I started thinking about that. That's why I would say, please also responsibilities and newsletter community, because that's what it is. Yes, I send things, but I also have the creator database, which allows people who are on the newsletter to see who's a part of the community and get to know each other. And there's still a lot of room to grow there. But, essentially with the Patreon, it was the same thing. They were just like, I'm posting, extra stuff for them. They're getting first access. They're getting, exclusive events. Whenever I do events, they're the first people to know. Um, so ultimately, like, I'm bringing them together, right? And this is how I try to think about it. And I was like, hold on, like, this is making sense for me. You know what I'm saying? So I
Mm.
think there are some things that are not necessarily like one to one in terms of like, you need to go to this event so that you can listen to this talk so that you can come back home and make $5,000. Like,
Yeah,
that's not the
yeah,
way that Resonate was presented to me.
yeah,
Resonate to me was presented as like, here's this really cool event at a museum in Richmond that's going to feature like people who are actively working in podcasting. So like their job, whether they are an independent podcaster or they're working on a team at NPR or wherever, like this is where they go, you know? So kind of just like not your Don Lemon level of podcast, but like not your sitting at home in the basement with two followers levels, like somewhere in the middle,
yeah,
like the
yeah,
working podcaster, who are like very into like audio as a medium. And I still feel like that's kind of the calling card of Resonate. It's this like very tight knit group of people because they can only sell so many tickets anyway. Like there's a cap on the event space. So it's like this very tight knit group of people who are like die hard, like I work in the podcast industry. That is what I do. And they come together and it's almost like this mastermind slash meeting of the mind. So I think too, like the way a conference is structured, like the premise of a conference is really important too. Like I feel like people were giving CultureCon a hard time because they're like, oh, y'all aren't taking this opportunity to uplift people and tell them how they can like be
yeah,
sustainable during this time. And it's like that was never the premise of CultureCon.
yeah,
CultureCon was about the culture. It's about the big names that you know in Black culture and media coming together to have a good time and to have some talks. That's it. Like, it's not about you learning how to be the next Z-Way. Z-Way is there for shits and giggles, you know? Like, why are y'all getting upset? Like, all y'all had to do is watch some of their previous recordings and you would see it's not like, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like their panels are more like live podcasts than they are like educational sessions. That's just not the vibe. That's
mhm,
never been the vibe of CultureCon. So you just got to decide like what is the vibe that you want and what's worth it to you.
yeah. And I know some people that went to CultureCon and they were like, every moment felt like it was being recorded for content. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, when they explained it that way, I was like, I'm glad I didn't put that on my agenda.
Mm,
Like, because I want some of that, but then I also want the moment where I can sit down and just like listen and take something in and then see how I can figure it out for my business, not necessarily sitting there the whole time with my phone. There's nothing wrong with that, but I know for me, I wouldn't have maximized that money. And for some of like the bigger you mentioned, like the tech conferences and stuff like that, like some of the tech conferences that are on my radar now, they're huge. They're like 50,000 people plus that are
okay.
in these cities for these conferences. And so I know like just because it's on my radar, if I don't necessarily go in and I'm not equipped to maximize going to that conference and if my energy is not right, I'm not going to it.
Right.
I'll just remove it from my calendar. So a couple
Yeah.
of really big ones out there. Afrotech is one
Yeah.
that a lot of people go to. And if I don't, if my energy ain't right, I already know like I'm not gonna do it. Invest Fest is another one I've been invited to by some folks.
Okay. Nope.
So I appreciate afros. I say all that to say I appreciate afros and audio. Right.
Okay.
I hope they bring it back because that was there was a decent amount of people there, but I feel like I could get the most from it, and I can engage as much as I wanted to without being overwhelmed. I appreciate conference experiences like that.
Yeah. No, that's real. Yeah. Oh man. There's something else I was gonna mention. Oh yeah, CultureCon. So like next year, I'm scaling back on the amount of events I'm gonna do. Part of that is because, one, I feel like I've had my time to be outside, like, this was my year to be outside, and I was definitely outside. So now, like, next year is, like, my year to relax a little bit and, like, okay, I've done the exploring, I've done the information gathering, I've done the networking. Now it's time for me to sit and, like, create what only I can create. And I've made some headways in that as well. Like, I do feel like both newsletters and both podcasts are really great bodies of work now. But I feel like, especially for YouTube, there's a lot of room for me to grow there, and that just takes a lot of time. Um, so I need to like sit my behind down and not be all over the place and like
Yeah.
be able to put out more stuff. My goal is like 3 a month. And just trying to like get those. And that's just on one channel. That's not even on. So on both channels, I guess my goal is 5 a month. So
Mm.
that's like not a small amount. And that's not even including the narrative stuff. So I got a whole lot going on upstairs that I need to like
So
get out.
I forgot I forgot to mention this for Black Week. So they had the conference, but then afterwards they had it was like a debut. It was like indie film creators like had a showing of their films, and it was much more intimate. It was like in a really old theater in New York, super cool in one of the neighborhoods. I think you would like
Yeah.
that part of it. And then afterwards, similar to the event I went for you, that was a while ago. We showcased
Yeah.
work, but similar to the one you did, where the creator gets on stage and then they have like an intimate talk with somebody. But it's like really a movie. Like you could hear a pin drop in this theater, this old theater. But it's really cool. And the works are just all over the place. It's just whatever people's inspiration is. But I think you would like that part of it. But that part was kind of like tucked away for Black Week. Like a lot of people didn't really go to that. I could tell the theater wasn't really packed to capacity, but the ones who cared about it, that's what they went to.
I would love that. I feel like that's
Yeah.
the thing though. So like Outside Festival in Denver, I don't know if Michelle is still on, but that's one of the events I'm considering. And Outside Festival does have like a movie film screening component there. But it's not just that. Like they have talks from like Athletic Brewing and
Yeah.
outside the magazine itself and REI. Like they're gonna have that stuff. And of course it's Denver. They probably have some options for you to get outside with some of these brands. So like informal kind of like unconference networking type deal. And there's also a music festival component. So the film festival is really like for those that 10% that like really cares about
Yeah.
outdoor films, you know? But my DP, like my camera person, they went, I think it was last year, and they like loved it.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I get a chance to go for sure. But
Do you
yeah,
know how
but
much that one is?
it was super cheap. It was like less than $100.
Oh, that's a no. Yeah, that's great.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
Yeah, that's
It's
that's that's
crazy.
really low compared to
Yeah.
the prices I'm seeing for. I
I've
don't go.
attended. Wow, Michelle. Wow. Way to keep it to yourself. Awesome Denver activities. But yeah,
How long has that festival been in place?
I think it's only a couple years. It's
Okay,
less than 10 years probably. But yeah, that's like one of the ones I'm considering next year. So
that sounds dope.
yeah. Oh man. What other festivals are you considering? It doesn't sound like you're going to Resonate. So
No, none of the big ones are just. I can't.
Resonate,
Uh,
it's not big. It's only like a couple hundred people. 2 years. I feel
where is
like
it
it's
at?
nothing.
Where is it at?
Resonate is in Richmond.
Oh, that's okay. I will go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will go to something like that. But the New York experience, I did that. I'm not going back there again.
No.
Oh yeah,
Yes. Yeah. I tried to do Climate Week a couple years ago and it was very expensive.
yeah, it
Very
was
expensive.
just so expensive.
Yeah.
And a quick side story: my country self. This is how country I am now. I found one of the only parks in Tribeca, and apparently some of the locals were volunteering, like to clean up, like take care of the park. And I was like, oh, I got time. Let me just go ahead in my North Carolina way and just help them clean up this park and dig up and break twigs and stuff. And I was like, okay, New York is not for me.
That-
This is not what the average person is doing.
That's so funny.
Trying
That's
to think.
great.
Um, there's probably I went to Black Men in Tech in Fort Lauderdale
I saw that.
earlier this month, so that was a good experience. Again, much more intimate, much more of an intimate experience. Few hundred people. I'll go to something like that. That's probably my wheelhouse. Few hundred or less. And not one of the top 3 or 4 major cities, preferably.
That's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair.
that's just it. I do want to go to you mentioned like or festivals or conferences that have like a movie or film component. I myself am not in it, but I feel like I would nerd out and just like I don't know, just want to be there to see like why they film this way. Like I care about stuff like that as a spectator, not necessarily someone who is where it's my craft. So I will look for opportunities like that, but I think that's much more personal outside of the business.
I
So
think,
outside fest, I will go to that.
yeah. One thing I was gonna say, and this is gonna come up in like one of my year-end newsletter articles, but one thing I think we're gonna see more of, like podcasting, journalism, like all that's been hit like really hard for the past couple years. And but like there's always money moving, you know what I'm saying? There's always people who are like, no, podcasting is still a career and it's still a viable option. Like I think some of the podcasters that are like closer to the top are like thinking about how they can leverage their shows for like TV syndication. So whether that's like
Mhm.
getting a true crime podcast syndicated as a film or getting like a talk show syndicated as like a TV syndicated talk show. You know what I'm saying? Uh, and so I think like we're gonna see more of that. And I'm interested to see how that affects like like not just podcast festivals, but like film festivals as well. And like there are so few, it feels like, podcast festivals that operate like music festivals where you go and you just listen to a bunch of different artists. Like there
Mhm.
aren't really that many podcast festivals that are like, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna explore all these different podcasts and I'm gonna have like live podcasts or attend like a live podcast recording, for example.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So like I think I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we're gonna see more of that. I think that's gonna be a way for people to like monetize their shows. And again, it's gonna separate the wheat from the chaff because we're gonna find out who's really funny and entertaining and who's not,
yeah,
who's really like providing like really like insightful interviews and whatnot. But also I think we're gonna see a lot of different formats, or at least I hope we see a lot more different formats. And that's another thing that's like has been a focus for me this year, will be a focus next year as well. So
yeah. I like that idea, like you said, just having a space where there's just like different podcasts going on and people are like tapping in. The one thing I will say, I think some people in the podcast space specifically, I don't know, I feel like they may have a hard time charging people what they should charge.
and they don't wanna have a business. They don't wanna have a
So
career as a
that,
podcaster then.
yeah,
So
yeah. I just feel like you gotta like if you want people to have that premium experience, like I learned that going to Black Week and spending all that money. Like we're eating the hors d'oeuvres and they got like stuff displaying on the walls and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this costs money. Like
yeah,
this stuff is not cheap. They had
yeah.
brands out there, like I think it was the brand Millie, the hair products. They were like giving
Oh,
people,
Mayo.
yeah, what was it called?
Mayo.
Mael. Sorry,
It's
that's
all good.
yeah, my brain. But yeah, so they had them out there. Like, they were like doing people's hair. Like it was like I was like, oh yeah, like this is some money right here. And so I feel like I would love to see a podcast experience where I come in and I pay a premium for a premium experience. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I rock with that. I rock with that. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, we've been going for like almost 45 minutes. Thank you guys for hanging with us. If you have questions about podcast events you're hoping to attend in 2026 or things you want to get out of any conferences or events you're going to, definitely let us know in the chat for sure.
Yeah. I would love to know what summertime or maybe spring conferences are on people's radars for sure.
I think for me, let's say this. I was born in Columbus, Georgia, which is right across the river from Phoenix City, Alabama. And there's been a conference here that I have missed every single year, but I am determined not to miss it in 2026. And it's happening in April. It's called Creative South. And it looks like it's targeted for like designers, illustrators, animators, but it's generally for creators and marketers as well. But they've had some big names come down. They've had Dan Mall, they've had Chris Do. Everybody knows Chris Do,
Mm-hmm.
who have come down and done talks. So I signed up to volunteer this year because I want to check it out and see what's up. I don't think they've released tickets yet. Maybe they have. I just can't remember. But I signed up to volunteer. So I want to be there in the spring. And that's a multi-day conference. So I'm excited to see what Columbus is like when it has like a creative event going
Yeah.
on. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
volunteering is a cheat code too, I feel like.
volunteering and speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for sure.
Okay. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
maybe I'll head down there.
You're welcome to come.
I can't imagine that would be like an expensive trip, or am I tripping?
So flying into Columbus should be available by then. They're working on the landing strip at the Columbus airport. So you should be able to
You're
fly there.
out in the boonies. They don't have a landing strip?
No, they do. They were doing some like work on it. So when I
Oh,
lived
okay.
in when I live in North Carolina, when I fly home, I fly to just straight into Columbus, and there's a connect in Atlanta. And that's cool. It's a chill flight situation, but obviously it's gonna be more expensive slightly than like flying into Atlanta, you know? But like whereas flying in from like Raleigh, Durham, or probably even Charlotte to Atlanta is maybe a 200 something dollar ticket. So that, depending on the time, it might be close to a 300 something dollar ticket to fly into Columbus.
That's not
So
bad.
you pay the extra $100 for the convenience of not having to drive an hour and a half,
Yeah.
basically, from
Yeah.
Atlanta to Columbus. Um, and there's like rental cars and stuff. If you want to rent a car, like get an Uber or whatever. Um, and then I would say hotels. I never stayed in a hotel because I live here. Like, why would I stay at a hotel? But I would imagine it's pretty comparable. And they have, something at every level. Like they have your nicer, like Marriott's and stuff like that, and Indigos. But then, they also have like a Holiday Inn. So there's options. I also don't know about Airbnb because why would I Airbnb? I live here. But
Yeah.
I would imagine it's a chill trip. You know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be on the smaller side. Like maybe I'm expecting between 200-ish people, maybe, like, but it feels like it's almost like a Resonate where it has, like, its cult following of, like, design,
Mhm.
marketing, like, diehard type people. Probably even some ad people as well, because like, a lot of designers end up being creative directors and, like, working on these commercials and campaigns and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what I'm expecting, that's what I'm hoping for. I like being kind of a filmmaker, writer, creator in a design space because I feel like I just get inspired by design a lot. So
Mm.
yeah.
Okay, April.
hmm
Not a bad time to go on a trip.
Yeah. So that's gonna be my first one of the year. That one. So yeah.
So how far in advance are you, if you're like booking speaking engagements at these conferences, like how far in advance are you reaching out and having those conversations?
It depends on the conference. Most of them have application periods. So it kind of depends on the application period. But most of them are, I would say, 6 to 8 months in advance. A lot of the application periods start 6 to 8 months in advance of the event.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little selfish question for me. I wanna
No, that's okay.
start
No,
I wanna
I'm
start
sure there's somebody else who's watching that could benefit from that though. Like if you're thinking about speaking at an event, like don't think you're gonna pop up the month before and be like, "Oh, I want to
yeah.
speak." Like that's probably not gonna happen. So yeah. Oh man. But yeah. But if there are no questions, we can wrap it up and see you guys next time.
Yep.
Um, I can introduce myself again. I'll let uh Kenny introduce himself as well. My name is Angela. All right, please hustle responsibly. Hey Raymond, thanks for joining. We're about to end. I'm really sorry. Really sorry. But all right, please hustle responsibly, which you can find here on Substack. Please hustle responsibly is a newsletter community for creators and entrepreneurs who want to learn, connect, and grow.
Thank you, Kenny Groom. The newsletter that I have is Beyond Normal, so you can check us out right here on Substack. I'm also a podcaster. We just wrapped up season 7 of the Beyond Normal podcast. Check us out. Every stream counts. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Angela. This has been amazing, and I'll try to do more Substack lives now that I know how to do it.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So see you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for reaching out to me again. So we're gonna have to do it again. We'll see.
Bye.